well-spoken, but they wear boots and a hard hat, you know what I mean? And if I could put that woman in front of that parent and say, you know, is this so bad? You know what I mean? She's 26 years old, she's single, she's independent, she's thriving, and she's here, and she's in your backyard still. She's not having to move out of state or even out of the county for that matter. And I think that's more of my mindset is trying to get access to the parents. Do we have a Red Hawk University that addresses the needs, the demand for women and and minorities? I don't want to leave that out. I speak to this a little bit more because I'm in it myself as a woman.
Well, and then piggyback off of what Mike said, this isn't anything new. I mean, it's years and years. There's been, I think, WOE and MOE and MBE. Yeah, women-owned businesses and stuff, and it's just going to get higher and higher, as Mike said, because of the strive for equity. In relation to the communication piece and the roadshow piece, I think this is part of it. I mean, we've got, right, but I mean, we've got, Vanessa coming back with a relevant issue that has been raised at BOCES, and I think it's something that, some of us may not have realized. I mean, I certainly didn't realize that there wasn't many female students. You could assume that, but without knowing the data. Tom's here, he's the captain of the ship, so to speak, and in terms of administration and guidance and everything here. And so even just communicating, you coming here, I thank you for doing that, because you coming here and communicating that to us, and Tom specifically, it's on his radar now. In terms of the roadshow, I wholeheartedly agree. But I mean, I believe that we talk, hang on just one second. I believe that we talk about in middle school, before the kids, they have to make a decision about BOCES at that level. And there's presentations given to students and their parents and families. I don't know, because my kids aren't there and I haven't been to one, but are the BOCES programs such as this present or a representative present to speak to the families that are there that are being educated about the opportunities in the city, and should, if this is if this is going to be a spearheaded effort, so to speak, and a goal of theirs, then should one of the people in charge of that department go to that roadshow, so to speak, if city is present. And if they aren't, you're absolutely right, they should be, because that's the audience right there. I love the Red Hawk idea that you threw out there. Us having I have attended 2 or 3 of those, and aside from the first one, I think the attendance isn't what it should be at those, and I think that we need to be more creative. Just my own personal feelings is getting that in front of an audience, whether it be a 5-minute snippet at halftime after marching band or while they're setting up, someone just getting on the mic and saying, hey, fun fact, and giving like a little spiel about, did you know, if you have a person interested in welding, particularly if they're a woman, like little 5-minute snippet, just to get the ears of people that don't necessarily get invested in coming and putting in extra hours to the after-hour programs and the after-hour informational sessions that the district offers. I mean, communication is key, and you hit the nail on the head, you hit the nail on the head, and I think what everybody said is great, but getting to the parents, I wholeheartedly agree, is what you need to do. I mean, some of the students might express interest in going to a middle or upper class family and saying, Mom, you know what, we learned about BOCES program, and I think I want to go be a welder because they make like all kinds of money, especially me being a woman, I'm almost guaranteed a job. And it's not just in that field. There's a lot of fields out there that's exactly the case. I mean, it's, there's pros and cons of it. I don't necessarily think just because someone's a woman that I think there's benefits and negatives that are coming out of that program, but it's not going anywhere. It's been there for a long time, and all they're doing is increasing the percentages. And so certainly if we want our students to succeed, that's certainly one way that we can have them do that.
Well, and I had mentioned a while ago, and I've said this to Tom, by 10th grade, their 10th grade field trip is too late. It should be in 8th grade. It should be 8th grade, and I've said that before, and it kind of like goes by the wayside. And I truly believe every kid should go, because it's not just, like, I know when I was in 8th grade, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and my parents were like, oh, you're going to go to a 4-year degree, you're going to do this, but now when I think about it, I'm like, wow, I could have saved so much money by doing X first. And it doesn't mean that I still don't get that 4-year degree, You know, I mean, it's something I wish I had taken carpentry myself, because now I pay for it every time I want something built, you know, and it's something simple like that, you know, and I really do believe every kid, I mean, I can't ever say that my son's gonna have a master's degree, or my daughter's gonna have a master's degree, but at least they would have some life skill of some sort. And I think in eighth grade, I will support it 110% that every eighth grader should go to a field trip at least, because I'm telling you, that place is amazing. And, you know, and I go there on every open house, you know, when everything is going on, and they will let you in those classes so that the parents can see, but I can tell you, if I see a handful of parents, it's
Right, but I think you're talking about a field trip for
to
students,
there,
right?
to there.
Right, but for students, right, the parents.
No, I'm saying open house that they have too,
Okay.
for parents too. But I think that's shame on them too, because I think that they could do a better communication piece on that. And they should let us know that we're having an open house and it should be put out. We should be supporting them, because like they did say, they are our arm, you know, or our leg of the school district too.
Right, and I just want to reiterate that many parents, at least, you know, some that I know that I've talked to about these, like when we did the vaping one, the Red Hawk University vaping one, it was great attendance, but it was because they did it right after the College and Career Readiness Committee met, and they had the meeting early, so it was, they had all those years, and I can't tell you the number of, you were there, I believe, can't tell you the number of faces that were just utterly astonished at the information that was provided. But when they had the next one, it was my understanding, not the one that Mr. Baldwin was at, but the next one in series, I think it was social media, the attendance dropped through the floor. And so there was no kind of mandated attendance, so to speak. It's not mandated, but we were all there for another reason, and it kind of got brought in. And so city can send postcards to every house, they can do whatever they want. If it's going out of their way to do something else, a lot of times you just don't get the ears. And what I'm saying is, if we have something that parents are forced to attend in preparation for their kid entering high school or whatever it is, that's when you need to get the ears, because that's when you can start to really, any of the ears that aren't reading the mail and aren't reading the letters going home and aren't doing any of that, that's when they might actually be paying attention. And, you know, I have to be here because it's a mandatory meeting anyways, so, you know, give information that maybe I'm not receptive to otherwise, you know. And I believe that there is a meeting for middle schoolers going to the high school. I thought I heard a parent talking about that's when they're introduced to the CTE opportunities available and things. And I know Mrs. Enright was working on getting that more, a better communication system with respect to that meeting. But, you know, I just think that's a perfect opportunity to have representatives from city be present at that meeting and say, hey, you know, we have tons of opportunities, but hey, here's a few, especially like if this is something that's one of their goals, then they specifically have someone speak to that. Like, you know, there's a severe shortage of, you know, people skilled in
I mean, I would love
trades.
to have Mike Rowe come in. It would be,
Right.
I mean, if you've ever seen him.
No, I've seen them, and that's the thing. Generally, I feel like it's a public issue that's being floated more often. You see 60 Minutes are, you know, covering it. You see other news people covering the many articles in the papers about this trade shortage, that the gap that's coming, you know, that it's pretty much a guaranteed job for anyone that graduates and has a good head on their shoulders, that's trained in these areas. And so saying it to everyone, I think it's being heard, but specifically with respect to this issue with women and minorities, I mean, I think if it's communicated to people, I think they'd see an increase. I really do.
So, Vanessa, I don't know, obviously we're not going to come up with all the answers or maybe any of the answers tonight, but I definitely think you bring up a good point in that just in general, so we as a district have done a really good job, as Tom's mentioned several times, about how we increased the number of kids we send, but we bringing awareness to the fact we need to be more intentional about breaking down, you know, what we, meaning the district, maybe naturally push them towards. And there's just some stuff, like I was on here, this is, Arena, don't think that this is not a dig. I'm saying this for us as a board. Like on our website, we don't even link out to city, right? I'm guessing most districts don't. Like there is this wall. Chris sat here last time and said, and I believe him, they're not his students, they're our students. And yet we view it as city programming and our programming. It is, so we just, if we can give some thought, and that's why we, again, added you on the schedule a little more regularly, we need to be intentional about breaking down those walls and doing a better job of getting all the students that could be participating in this out there. So.
Well, but then there's also the reality as well. And I know that reality is you sort of see that vein and Maureen's neck start pulsating. When we increased from 100 to 140, we're talking, what was that increase to our budget?
Close to $1 million.
$1 million. So I think it would be false to say, okay, if we had 300 kids that wanted to go to BOCES, we have to significantly look as a district and as a board on where we're putting the money and programming that we have in district. So I think we do a pretty good job balancing, but there's also accountability. And it's easy for people to say, well, certain kids don't come to school just because they're square peg and circle holes. That's why their attendance is bad. That's why they're suspended a lot and whatnot. Then we see when we give them that opportunity to go to BOCES and we just see there are some kids that, yes, but then there are a lot of other kids that are still not going there, and it should not be on the taxpayers of the district to have to send them to somewhere else while they're not going. So we have been very, very vigilant. Vigilant. I just put 2 words. Vigilant in checking that. Kristen's worked very hard to make sure it's not just a free pass where we're going to pay you to go. There's expectations as well on both sides, and we're communicating that with parents as well, and pulling kids back because they say, "Oh, I will go there, I'll do it," and we're finding out they're not going to class when we're sending them there. And that's a huge investment on the district. Yeah, so that's where I'm a big believer in multiple pathways, and yes, there's no doubt that there are kids that truly belong going their 10th grade year, City BOCES, great programming, but then there are other kids that are thinking, "Well, it's going to be easy because we're not there." We're weaning those kids out.
When you see, I'm learning as I go here, when you say we're weaning those kids out, so let's say we send somebody to 11th grade, okay, we're going to send them to a 2-year TCT program, let's say it's welding, they're going to get a half a credit for math in 11th and a half a credit in 12th. And we see that the attendance is not there, we see that they're clearly not utilizing this program. Are we holding them back in 12th grade and saying, absolutely not, but if we do,
No,
then
we're bringing them back here.
You do bring them back.
Oh,
How do they
absolutely.
graduate on time at that point? Because
So then there's things like Play-Doh and other things for credit recovery. We're seeing that we're paying taxpayer money to send them to a program that they're not even going to. We'll bring them back here, give them a schedule, and say, okay, we gave you that opportunity. Because at the end of the day, we have to look at all of our students. We have to look at the amount of money it is. And it was an increase from them. And yes, we get a percentage back. But again, I think that's a little bit gray area too, because the money comes on the first, what is it, $35,000, Maureen? Of their salaries over there. So I think it's a little misleading when we always say, hey, you know what, but next year we get a check back. Really, we're only paying, 20% or whatnot. It's more than that. There are other costs, which I'm definitely not knocking if it's the right program, and there are kids that can get a lot out of that. But where we're really tightening up on is the idea that, okay, we're sending them over, they're in a different universe. No, we're keeping an eye on them because if they're not going, we're bringing them back here because of that.
I agree wholeheartedly. I was just curious as to how that did work as far as the credit recovery. I just wondered how
Yep.
that worked.
Tom, excuse me, I have an 8:30 commitment that I will let you know. Vanessa, I want you to know I'm not walking out on you, but I have a work commitment that I get on to call, so I apologize.
No?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from you, Vanessa?
I don't have anything specific. I could go over a lot of stuff that I've done in the last couple of months, but I don't think that any of it is necessary. I go over pretty much everything with Andy every month so that everybody knows. After every meeting, I do touch base with Andy. And I have touched base with Randy a few times. I'm going to thank you now. He has been extremely welcoming and willing to talk to me anytime that I have reached out for any input, advice, give me some history. So he's been amazing as well. Ideas for what you want me to bring to you. Certainly, if there's anything like this where I know there's an initiative, there's a big conversation about something, I'll bring it to you guys. But if you have anything that you want me to touch on, certainly reach out, email me, call me, let me know, and I'll be glad to. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Miss.
Thank you, and congratulations to Ms. Haskins and Mrs. Sundit for traveling out to Niagara Falls and doing their training as newly elected board members. So you can give your presentation next time. Just kidding. All right, thank you. And with that, then we move into item H, which is not what it usually is. It is items for action and discussion. So the first one is item H1. Can I get a motion, and there will be discussion, but can I get a motion for item H1, the approval of the District Comprehensive Improvement Plan?
I'll make a motion.
Second. Mrs. Fishman with the motion, Mr. Lloyd with the second, and we'll open it up for discussion. And with that, I think we're going to invite Mrs. Galvan to present an overview of the budget.
While she's walking up there, I'll let you know, this was the one topic that there are a lot of districts that just had the board president sign off on it, the superintendent, and it went in. We had a timeline, so we talked to the state, and we just said it's not realistic in the timeline you gave us. So they basically said, okay, just don't have your board president sign it. We're still going to start to review it, and so you won't miss any deadlines. So once this meeting is over, I then need to go back to my office and email them that it has been approved. Connie will explain.
Hi. So ironically, two different things that came up tonight are really connected to this. Everything that Mr. Vespi was talking about, ESSA and the data, very much connected to the DSEP, the SEP, the Title I, II, and IV grants, and the 6 addendums. The mentor program is in one of the action steps at the middle school. It's in the creation phase. So it was a brilliant idea. I'm glad you came up with it. Thank you. So just getting started, as Tom said, it's not just about a signature. It's really important that everybody understands what went into these different plans. So the purpose of our meeting today is I'm going to just talk about the DSIP and the SEP. As you know, everything in education is an acronym. So DSIP is a District Comprehensive Improvement Plan. The SEP is a Comprehensive Education Plan. You might remember back in the winter, early spring, we received notification under ESSA, Accountability Statute, that Central Square had been designated as a targeted school district, and that the middle school had been designated a CSI school. That designation came as a result of some areas that they pinpointed, low performing in ELA and math at the middle school for economically disadvantaged students as well as Hispanic students. Then all of our buildings, except for Brewerton, I believe, had issues with chronic absenteeism. And the chronic absenteeism was even higher for students who were economically disadvantaged. So because our data showed certain progressions of low performance, we became targeted. As a result of that, PDM, all the elementary schools except Brewerton, had to come up with what's called an addendum plan. What are they going to do to address their potential areas of low performance? The middle school had to come up with a SEP plan, and then we had to come up with a district comprehensive plan, all of which are all connected. So I'm just going to overview the DSIP. I did bring it. It's over 35 pages. All the plans together that are all connected are close to 200. I didn't print them. Lorena wouldn't let me. She doesn't let me use, she's teaching me to be digital in every way. So, but I can send you the plans if you do want to see them. I did bring the DSEP because since you're approving it, I have it if you really want to go through it. But, so what we do is we use the different pieces of data, multiple pieces of data to determine our areas of need. They're aligned to what's called the DISTI pillars and sub-pillars. There's measurable SMART goals and action steps supported by evidence-based interventions. The evidence-based interventions are put through what's called the clearinghouse. The state says, I don't get to say, oh yeah, it's evidence-based, or I read it on Facebook, so it must work, or anything like that. There's an actual clearinghouse that the state has a bunch of approved evidence-based models, researches, and action steps that you can use. So we've got all of that. All of that goes in front of the DISTI review staff. So once we got through all of that, we then have the next timeline. So this is where it all started. We became TSI and CSI in the spring, late winter, spring. The school improvement grant application, it's called the BASIC, and the FS10, which is the budget, was due on March 13th. Ironically, I hadn't even gone to the training yet on what this was. Remember, I kind of spoke with you guys and said, well, I'm writing the grant, I'm doing the FS10, and I go to training a week after it's due. So then the ESSA visitation took place the 22nd through the 24th, and that's when the folks from State Ed actually came. all different kinds of interviews. The stakeholder and climate and culture survey happened in May. Then a needs assessment survey was conducted, also in May. Then we went through the data, all the school tool data, all our local data, the state data. Then we got the visitation results July 15th. Now initially, this plan is due the 1st of July. So I asked for an extension because I didn't have the results. So Pearl? So what happened once we got the results? Well, before we got the results, we had started the collaboration process because everything has to be done collaboratively with all stakeholder groups. You have a specific set of folks that have to have input. So we got a consultant in there. We brought in some data review, planning, implementation. We have to do a draft plan. The draft plan is put through the different people in the stakeholder groups, both the DSIP and the SEP. Then I had to present the planning documents to the stakeholder groups for review and preparation. Then they got to give their input. Then they got to give their input again. Then we added it to the draft. And when they were comfortable, they all signed off. That took till the 26th of August. Obviously, from July 15th to August 26th, when you're trying to work with 2 different groups of more than 20 people, it takes a little while. So, like I said, also part of those are these addendum grants. With the money that Mr. Vespi kept referring to, that's all connected to this. When he said it's coming, I don't know what he's talking about, it's been here. So Title 1, 2, and 4, we reviewed at our admin retreat. We did some collaboration and some input on the 7th and 8th of August. The plans were all uploaded on August 8th. Ms. Pearl? Then I got to work with the private and parochial schools. I also have to invite them to participate and prove that they got a chance to do that. So they got some letters, they decided they wanted to participate, I bought them donuts, I had a meeting, none of them came, it was really great. I ate the donuts. All of that then went out. So that was uploaded August 26th. Titles 1, 2, and 4, plus the FS10s, that's the budget that goes with them, was on August 23rd. The SEP collaborative meeting was the 22nd. The SIG 1003, that's the grant that goes with these plans with the FS10, went into the portal on August 26th. We held the DSIP meeting. Ms. Pearl, one more. And the final step today is to get you folks to vote on it as you just did. Once I have Mr. Martin, Mr. Kolo's signature, I then send them this. The grant has gone in, the budget narrative went in, all of them connect. It's a total of like 8 or 9 different plans. And they all connect and speak off each other, and they all go back to basically the district strategic plan. Does anybody have any questions?
What's the time frame again? When will the state
Approve it?
approve it?
Probably when they fill state ed offices, I don't really know. They've already sent me back. So they looked at the SEP plan very quickly because we had a staff member who lost her grandmother that morning and didn't come, so she didn't sign. So they must have looked at it really quickly because they were like, you're missing a signature. I'm like, well, her grandmother died. And I couldn't take her name off it because everybody else had already signed. Oh, okay, just put on there, absent due to family emergency. Okay, so I know they looked at it the same day I sent it. Now, I already got notification today from Tom Santangelo, who leads the DISTI review for our district. They are coming on the October 10th and 11th to visit us at the middle school so that they can assess how the first 30 days have already gone. Because they gave us things and said the day that they left back in May, fix these now. Those are called quick wins. Then we had to already implement by day 1 the SEP plan. I was down there today assessing a couple of the different quick wins. One of them was a cafeteria issue, so I spent, I forgot how much fun 2 hours in the cafeteria is, counting kids, counting adults, watching interactions, seeing where everything was. One of the other things was just, there were some concerns that there wasn't adequate supervision in the hallways. So between every period, I was walking around today with a little notebook, kind of watching to see what was going on there. How many teachers did I see in the hallways? How many administrators did I see in the hallway? So it's not approved yet, but it's already being implemented as is. And he said that's okay in the letter that we got today, because it said, if it hasn't been approved, if we haven't got notification of approval, what do you want us to do? That was one of the FAQs. And he said, be implementing it. We'll tell you when we get there if we want you to change something. Other questions?
I just have one on the status of how well we're doing with the DSIP. Are there periodic reports to the board and by whom?
It would be by me, and there are periodic progress monitoring check with, like the DSIP committee is going to meet regularly to review the data. There's checkpoints and benchmarks all the way through it. And I would love to get up with you guys. I would be happy to come back and do something like that. Absolutely. Because what good is a plan if you never follow up and see if it's having any impact? So by mid-year, there's a mid-year benchmark. If we're not meeting it, we'll already start making the changes or planning the changes.
And just to piggyback real quickly, we had a really small amount of parents that took the culture climate survey for the parents. We want to do things where there's events, kind of talk to them like what Christy just said, piggyback on that, where we want to have Chromebooks available and parents can come in between different sessions and whatnot and take it. So the one that we gave was the one that came from New York State. It's long, so we're looking at that to try to make it smaller, to try to get more parents to take this culture and climate survey.
So what we already did is we recreated any areas that popped up as areas of concern. We didn't address anything if it only showed up in one spot. The data was all triangulated. Did it show up here, 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 and here? So it had to show up at least twice, and they had to show up with at least a 50% area of concern. I couldn't have two people tell me how bad something was and really make a big move on that. So unless it had shown up 2 to 3 times with at least 50 points of area of concern, we didn't really address it. Unless the state, well, there was a couple where the state came in and said, address that. Chronic absenteeism. Now, ironically, our parents didn't really think we had that big of an issue with it. The state, however, did not agree with that. So the survey, we already took it to all the ones that were an area of concern. Those are the questions that will get re-asked. And then we'll do, at the end of the year, we'll do the whole one again, but we want to pinpoint the areas that we're addressing with our action steps, both in the SEP and the DSIP.
So if I have a question specifically about the DSIP, just for my own awareness, you're the one I could ask the questions of?
I'm your girl.
All right, thank you.
And if anybody wants me to sit down and do it with them individually, because again, it's one of those things where you're going to kind of want to look at it and be like,
Hold it on.
what is that? This is the front to back side. Like I said, it's 30 pages long. And then, and if you want it, you can have it. You really, really can. And then when you put them all together, because like I said, one of the things that we did is we laid them all out to make sure they were congruent and cohesive, that one wasn't contradicting the other, because the money's all funneled in together. So if I say I'm going to work on this at Central Square Middle School, I have to know that I'm doing something consistent. So one of the things that Mr. Vespi was talking about is what we call a comparability report. So I already assess what is the economically disadvantaged status of each building. And then when I do the grant, I have to spend it according to that comparability. So when he said it's coming, I was thinking, I've been doing that for 3 years. It's really fun. Because I love a good spreadsheet, don't I, Mrs. Ladd? More questions?
So I haven't read your goals yet, so I'm gonna ask this question without knowing the answer before I ask it. That's something you probably shouldn't do. But in your strategic plan, is this rolled into your strategic plan?
Yes, so if you look at the goals that Connie's been working on at us, and you look at the goals that I just submitted to you, and
Right.
look at the instructional things, yeah, you're going to see an alignment.
Okay. That's I don't either. Because if there isn't an alignment, then what are we doing here? Because
Absolutely.
there has to be an alignment, because to me, this is a big deal.
The topics absolutely align. I'm not 100% sure if the actual measurable SMART goal aligns perfectly, but it's really stinking close, I can tell you that. Because sometimes,
No.
oh, no, and that's one of the things that we did, is we made sure they were all out. And that's the first time this is my 16th year, that's the first time I've ever seen this district do that. Where everything was laid out and said, if we're doing this, let's do it right all the way across. Let's make sure the money aligns. Let's make sure that the action steps here align to here, align to here. So it's a really huge umbrella. And then every one of those little metal things that comes off the umbrella really does align really nicely.
Well, as much as I like to rail against state and state ed and almost everything that they do, I will give major kudos to you, everyone that worked on it, because to your point, as frustrating as they can be, it feels like we weren't checking the box to submit a plan because they required a plan. But from talking to you guys, you feel like it's going to help us improve, and that's the goal. So,
Yeah,
great
because
work.
to me, we should have a dashboard for this, right? With the data that's driven, so that we should have a dashboard that's aligned with the overall plan.
It's several different dashboards, but yeah.
Yeah.
And you saw
Well,
those.
but yeah, I'm not being critical, I'm just saying that really, now that we have the data, we should be able to measure this as it goes through with the overall
Oh, it's going to
effectiveness
be
of the plan,
very,
right?
very, very measured. Like I said,
Right.
it's.
Would be
we're gonna
economically disadvantaged too, so like, we know that, I mean, it wasn't rocket science, but the question is what now? So what is that gonna drive to make sure that they are getting what they need to be able to be successful?
No, absolutely.
So our professional development plan, our district level professional development plan aligns to the areas of need. We have a district attendance committee that will align to that. Everything is it's very cohesive. I'm really proud of it. I think it's probably the most work I've ever done with probably 75 different people between the administrators and the collaborative groups. And it actually all got to one end, and I thought that was pretty good. I hope we don't ever have to do it again right away,
Well, no,
but I am proud of it.
This groundwork, in my overall career experience is fundamentally how an organization is shaped, it's monitored, it's measured, it's improved. To me, this is all fantastic stuff. I mean, you understand you have an issue, problem, however you want to define it, but how are you going to manage improvement? And if you don't understand what the problem is, develop solutions, measure the performance of it, you're not going to go anywhere. This is right where it needs to be. Congratulations.
Yeah, and I have to thank all these folks because they were a huge part of it. Marina and I spent a lot of time going over different parts of it. Then I go over to Maureen, and then she'd find my math errors, do my spreadsheet stuff. Nope, move that over there. Okay, back to it. Erin, I need your help with the addendums from the elementary. You're in these buildings every day. What do you think we're going to do? She met with each principal individually, so it was truly, like, talk about cogs in a wheel.
All right.
And Tom did a lot too.
Did he? I don't believe it.
Thank you, Connie. So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of accepting the plan? Thank you. It is unanimous. All right, can I get a motion to accept item H2, the approval of overnight student trips? There are 4 of them. Anyone make it?
No, I'll
Mr.
second.
Loy, second by Mrs. Sundit. Any discussion on the student trips? All those in favor? Thank you. And I will make a motion that we accept item H3, the approval of the appropriation to retirement contribution reserve and sub-reserve fund resolution. Maureen or Pearl, do we have to read this or just, is that enough? That's enough? Okay.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Fishman. Any discussion on this or anything? So any discussion on this one?
The only question I had is adjustable every year, right?
Is it always 2% or can it be changed to a different amount?
Right.
It's
A maximum of 2%, up to 10% in total.
Total, that's all it can hold.
That's all it can hold. Yep.
Percentage.
Yep.
Maximum.
But at what frequency can it change, I guess what I'm asking.
Annually or?
Yeah, if we need it to use it, I would come to the board and ask you to take it back out, to use it in the budget, given whatever situation we're in. And then if we're in a good situation, we can continue to add to it up to the 10%.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. All right, and before we adjourn, just a reminder, we had said at the last meeting, Mr. Brissett has been very nice sitting out there this whole time, so I know, at least speaking for myself, I'm tired, I'm sure you're all tired, I guarantee Paul's tired. But for anyone that can trudge through, we have a tour. Paul's going to offer us a tour of the construction and kind of some updates in this building, and then those us to walk over to MHE. So that's immediately following our adjournment. Anybody that's here is welcome to join us. We're going to close the public meeting, but the tour is open to anyone that wants to come. Right, Paul? With that, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Second. That's a motion by Mr. Loy. Second by Mrs. Sundage. Any discussion? All those in favor? We're good. Have a good night. Or see you.